What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. This video is going to be a little bit different because this is going to be part one of a showing you the ropes series that I'm doing for saddle hunting. And in this video, I'm going to be breaking down and showing you guys how to build your own tether at home. So the first thing you're going to need to do when it comes to building a tether is obviously order some rope. You can do this a lot cheaper than ordering a manufactured tether just by ordering rope by the foot. I recommend going somewhere like rope.com and finding a good climbing rated rope. This is the most important thing. Find a rope that is specifically made for climbing. Find a good weight rated rope. I recommend getting one between the 8 and 12 millimeter range and finding what you want that's going to work for you. The smaller diameters is going to limit you on what you can use as an ascender, so keep that in mind. This rope that I'm using today to show you these knots is going to be an 11 millimeter rope, and it's just a short section. You want your finished tether to come out somewhere around the 7 foot, 6.5 to 7 foot range, and I recommend ordering 10 foot of rope for your tether. You can get good climbing rope for less than $1.50 a foot, so you're talking about $25 for a rope for you to make, as opposed to ordering one from somewhere online that's going to cost you upwards of $50, even $60. So without any further ado, guys, if you hadn't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and we appreciate you guys checking out these videos. Let's jump right into it. All right, so here we have our section of rope that I'm going to be using today to show you these knots. It's pretty simple. It's going to be kind of short and sweet and to the point right here. So once you get your rope in, you have a section of rope, and I wouldn't recommend cutting any of the rope. I would recommend finding one end of it and starting there, building your loop that you're going to run your tag in back through, and go ahead and tie this knot. That way you can cut excess off of the end of the rope, and that'll let you easily adjust the length of your tether to whatever you want it to be. So with that being said, this is roughly 2 feet here, as you can tell, because this table has tile. These are 12-inch tile. So this is roughly 2 feet of rope to make my initial bite that I'm going to be using. Well, let me correct that. This is about 4 feet of rope right here. So I really don't need that much, probably. So I'm going to cut that down to maybe about, let's say, roughly 3 feet of rope right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to tie what is called a figure 8 on a bite, which just means it's going to be a figure 8 knot with a loop in the end, and that is going to be so that you can run the other end of rope around the tree and back through that loop, and that's what's going to hit you to the tree, thus making your tether. So this is how you tie that knot. Here's how I like to do it. I like to make my loop like this, find a spot kind of lower down, bend it like this, right? So then I'm going to cross this over like this. I'm going to run it underneath the bottom, and then I'm going to run it right back through that initial loop. And then I'm going to work this knot down until I get this exactly the length that I want it. And that is a pretty good, pretty close to the size. I would work this rope up and run it back up through to make this loop just a little longer, but for the sake of the video, this will give you guys a really good idea of how the finished knot should look. So this is called a figure 8 on a bite, and you can see that all my lines are nicely dressed. That's one thing you always want to do, is make sure you dress your knot. You want it to look, you don't want to look at it and see any ropes crossing over in any place. You can see how these marks are lined up in every spot. That is because this is a properly dressed knot. You can see in the back that none of the ropes are crossing, and this knot looks pretty good. So that is your end of your rope. These figure 8 knots are easier to get undone than a standard overhand knot. However, a typical overhand knot will work. So another knot that you can use for your working end of your tether is an overhand knot. This is actually what I use. It's harder to get undone if you need to untie it, but I typically leave my tether tied, and this knot actually reduces the amount of rope that you need for your loop. So to do a standard overhand knot, you do essentially like you would do with anything that you would tie. It's basically a granny knot. I've heard it called lots of different things, but this is your overhand knot, and it is sufficient as well. This is a nicely dressed knot. You see how my indicators line up perfectly, meaning my knot is dressed and precise. So this is another alternative for your working end. Some people do not like this knot. They don't agree with it. I've never had any issues with it, and I've been using it for a few years, but I wanted to show you the figure 8 because that's what everybody's going to tell you to do. You can make your own decisions. This is your own personal health at risk, and you do what feels safest to you. Alright, so now once we've made our working end of the rope, let's move on to the other end of the rope, which is going to be your tag end, the end that has nothing. So essentially, you're going to run some sort of prusik or mechanical ascender that's going to actually connect you to this tether, and that's what's going to connect to the bridge of your saddle, and that will be explained further in a later video when we get into making bridges and prusiks and things like that. But so for now, we're just going to do what's called a stopper knot on the end of this rope, which means that if your mechanical ascender or prusik cord were to fail and were to slide down this rope, you wouldn't simply just slide off the end and fall. You would hit that knot, and that's as far as you could fall. It is a fall arrest. That is its purpose, and it's very simple to do, and we're going to go ahead and do that for you right here. So what I like to use is what's called a double fisherman's knot, which essentially would be an overhead knot, but instead of once, you wrap it twice like that. Run your tag end back through the center, as you can see here, and it's going to basically look kind of like an X on this side, and then when you flip it over, it's going to be 2 nice uniform loops. Tighten that down good, and there is a fall arrest. If your ascender were to fail and you were to slide down this rope, it would stop you at this knot and keep you from sliding off the end. That's the purpose of this. That's why it's called a stopper knot. So here you have a completed tether. You can make this as short or as long as you want to, whatever works for you, and it's just completely up to your discretion. Now that we have a completed loop and stopper knot, I'm going to show you guys how this attaches to the tree. So this is pretty simple, and this is going to be your tether. So take your looped end, run it around the tree like this. Take your tag end, run it back through, and there you have a perfectly functional tether for about half of the price that you would get if you were to order one manufactured from one of these companies. Alright guys, that is going to wrap it up for the tether video. I know it's kind of short, sweet, and to the point, but there's really not a lot to it. It's just 2 simple knots that are very easy to tie. Anybody can do it at home. Basically just cut the rope to the length that you want it. Make sure you melt the ends so that the sheathing and the core of the rope don't separate. You can do that just by using a lighter, burning those ends so that they don't separate. Pretty simple stuff here. Nothing elaborate about it. So in the next video, we'll kind of go over some different things, maybe moving towards more of tying a prusik to go around your tether, and that will give you guys an idea of what to use as an ascender to attach your bridge to on your saddle. So hang around for the next video, and I'll post that whenever I get it filmed. I appreciate you guys checking this one out. Again, if you hadn't already, go ahead and subscribe. It just helps this channel grow. We really appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you in the next one.